that's gonna be honest number. Out of 100 students, I guess maybe 3 of them, maybe 5 of them, sometimes maybe even 10 will make it to the top. Maybe 25 or 30% of them will get into the industry. But we have to take into consideration the factor that not everyone is made for this industry. No matter how talented or how well in the art craft you are, maybe it will be too tough for you to sustain. Maybe it will be too tough for you in terms of like a business side. Maybe you will not be able to live with the pain of the back or neck or eyes or hand. These are the struggles that we don't usually talk about because people only see you are gathering like I don't know, like a 10,000 likes and you are famous, like, oh, and you got a good money, you got amazing projects, but people don't really see all the struggle behind it.
Hello and welcome to the Art Department podcast, episode 50. It's 50 already. Who would have thought that? So it's Emmanuel Shiu here and myself, Urschel. And for this 50th episode, we have one of the industry heavyweights, Darek Zabrocki. If I pronounced that correctly, I hope so.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Man, perfect. Like it's like a very rare occasion that someone from like out of Poland can pronounce it very well.
Germany
So
is close enough, right? So
yeah, totally.
Okay, great to have him here. I mean, I don't think he needs any introduction because I think everybody knows him. But nevertheless, Emmanuel, why don't you give just a short introduction of our guest for those who don't know him?
Sure. I've known Darek now for quite a while. I got to know him when Level Up was being put together and they were getting guests on. So I really liked, how he was talking about things on that. And so, we maintained a relationship throughout the years. Of course, his work is super awesome. And we've talked through a lot of sort of more personal things through the years and gotten to know him. And I just thought it would be really cool to have him on and to share with us some of his life, basically. So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about you? I mean, how did this all happen?
Very, very, very humbling experience to have to be your guest, guys. Because yeah, that's correct. Like I used to do Level Up with my friends Wojtek and Jonas, but we rather were on the other side. We were interviewing people. So like this time, I'm actually like not bothering, but I think like I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing because I remember when we started Level Up back in 2000. I think 13 or 14. It was actually the first and the only podcast on art. Like in general, we were more like just newbies. We were just doing illustrations, and we wanted to be and to get to the industry. But we were basically the first podcast that was doing it through YouTube, and it grew like to the biggest that were basically interviewing artists that we look up to. We are interviewing the artists that we treated as some sort of like icons for us. We because we weren't in the industry, we wanted to know a little bit more about that, and every week we were connecting with our audience and of course with our guests, talking to them, like hearing their stories and whatnot, and it gave us a lot of like motivation and push. So I remember when we started out, there was like basically nothing like that. And after we did Level Up, maybe 1 year or 2 years later, there were like a podcast like mushrooms after the rain, like one after another. And what I sort of like lacked in them, and maybe from the perspective and from how the time goes on, I think we did more casual talks to the people because we were still like kids. We were basically 20, 22 years old guys, and we were so hyped, we were so motivated, but we were more like kids are basically interviewing their idols, you know. So I remember from that approach. And what I like about your podcast is it takes like a little bit more mature road, you know. Like I spoke to you guys before and told you that I like when you touch upon like the topics that are very important, maybe even more important than just mindless talking about like how awesome the guest is, you know. So I think this approach is something that I really appreciate. And you know, every once in a while when I work, I listen to your podcast, and I like those topics about like mental, fitness, and you know, like all the business side of things that people don't really talk about that much. So like a lot of podcasts that happened after Level Up were mostly focused on like casual talk, but you guys are taking a little bit more specified and more mature road, which I really like and I really dig. So yeah, through my very long intro, very happy to be here. So thank you for inviting. Um, for those who don't know me, I'm a concept artist, illustrator, art director, and also CEO at Focal Point School. So yeah, I started back actually when we did Level Up. You know, it were my beginnings for like a entertainment industry as a concept artist. So it's been like 8 9 years already since I'm in, and yeah, and the road so far is pretty exciting, and it's like a roller coaster. Things are going very fast, but of course there's a lot of bumps along the way. So like it's not as smooth as it might look, you know. So yeah, I love what I do, and I'm open for discussion. So basically.
Did you, so you started off like you were self-taught, right? I mean, how would tell us a little bit more about that?
So basically, I was doing back in 2010, 11, I was doing like some board games, cards, illustrations for, you know, for boxes, for covers, for comics that were very heavily oriented with like illustration. So like action scenes and marketing art. Um, Usually low key clients, sort of like, you know, just doing like smaller sort of like commissions, but these were already coming from states or from, you know, other sides of Europe. So I was doing that, but I was like feeling that that's awesome because I can make a living out of that already. I was still living with my parents, so I didn't want to basically I didn't want to stress them out to buy me like a new equipment or new tablet or new screen. So I was rather that guy that wanted to basically you know, earn what I had to use in my specification or in my job, because you know, my parents were very supportive, but we were rather like a normal, sort of like a semi-poor family in Poland. So of course, like everything that involved like a high-tech spec, you know, PCs or like a Wacom was way, you know, above our budget or whatnot. So I was always trying to find ways to earn some money so I can buy the equipment for myself. And basically, I was always rather thinking of like I have to invest into myself. You know, I have to invest into the future rather than just spend money on like some random, you know, shit. You know, so sorry for that, but like I felt like it's very important for like self-developing, and my parents, of course, helped me as much as they could, but I was like, hey father, like I don't really need your money. I just, you know, I have your support. You give me like a roof up above my head, you know, so this is fine for me right now, and I just want to find my own ways to make a living out of what I do. Because back in the day I was in math and physics high school, so I didn't know actually what exactly what's the approach that I wanted to get. Because as I often mentioned, I didn't really plan to be an artist. You know, I didn't really plan to be a commercial artist, so to speak. You know, I just always did that because I loved that since I was like 3 or 4. So I kept on doing that, but I didn't even know that there's like such such position in the industry, because in Poland, all the resources like internet, everything was pretty late on the market, and then the number of like resources or like the ways to reach out to all those like modern technologies was a little bit like left behind if you compare it to like Western countries. So I remember that I kept on doing that, and in 2011, 2012, I was doing those illustrations, and every once in a while I found like some contest online, like either like CG Talk, I guess that was the website back then. It was actually the biggest, I think, on the market, right before ArtStation and CG Hub, I guess. So they were like running the contest. Once in a while I just entered the contest through them or through DeviantArt, because I just wanted to believe that I can maybe make through, maybe what I do for like cardboards or illustrations that give me like a low key kind of client base, or like at least a decent amount of money to start with. I can maybe make it even bigger, because I felt like, I already knew that there are like projects, high-end, top-tier Hollywood productions that require like a lot of concept art. But it's like, yeah, but this is for the guys that are like a minority, This is like for US guys, This is for the guys that might be like in the number of 20s, So like there may be like 20 guys on the market, and of course I'm never gonna do that. So I was like having that mindset that I'm happy where I am, but I wanted to have a little bit more, like in terms of like I wanted to do like a more progressed or developed projects, but I didn't know actually how to do that. So I tried a bit of everything, like in Poland we say, if they don't want you, just try to get through the window, So this sort of like a approach, but I was very realistic, like I knew that there is like a huge competition already, even though concept art, if you talk about concept art to someone in Poland, like no one actually knew about it, like we knew only about illustration, marketing art, cover art for comics, for like for games, but we thought that concept art is that sort of like a uncharted territory for us, that it's, you either have to move to abroad, or you have to be like really like a genius, to get there. So I had that in mind, and I didn't push myself towards like, oh, I really need to get there, but I of course dreamed. I feel like I dreamed inside of me, but I didn't really speak it loud, So there were like that was that contest, international contest from I think Infected by Art. There was like some organization, ELA, and they set it off for like as a online contest, and they asked people who were submitting to submit their best works from sci-fi and fantasy genre. So what they did across the years, or what they did last year, and they were basically announcing it that we're gonna pick up like the best works through both worlds, and then we're gonna have like a $10,000 in prizes, So I didn't know it's like a money, it's like it might be some like exposition. It was a little bit vague in the beginning, So I put some of my work that I was doing along the work that I did for my clients. So I of course treated my clients as a priority back then, but I was also doing some personal pieces, I was so inspired by guys like, Marek Okon from Poland. He was a big shot. Like, I think he was the biggest in our Polish market right before all that explosion of ArtStation and whatnot. So we always like look up to the guys like that. So I was doing a lot of work that were like similar, or like I already get heard of like Craig Mullins. So of course tried imitating his style a little bit. So try to basically give my own hatches to a little bit of different styles. So I submitted some works, and my Nazgul piece that I did for Polish board on a very small contest was voted very in the voting, because voting was public. it was getting like from, I think they had like a tens of thousands submissions across the whole world, and they were actually the guys that were already very famous, you know, in the industry. I remember like some guys I already look up to when it comes to like concept art. So yeah, my pieces were like somewhere in the middle of voting, and there was that one piece that I did about Nazgul, and he was getting like a higher and higher in the voting. I was like, yeah, it's like I'm still like a 200 something, you know, position. So like, what can I dream of about, you know? Like I just, yeah, let it go. And the voting happened for like a month or so, and my work just get higher and higher. And of course, I was asking my friends or like some people to vote me, but of course I didn't have any reach. You know, I had like a 500 followers on DeviantArt, and that was my whole audience. You know, so what could I do when they had like thousands of works and there were like a 10,000 or even more, you know, people voting. So like eventually there was that one guy who was topping everyone else in the voting, and I think they found out that he was cheating at some point. I don't know if he had like some sort of like a voting generator. Yeah. And I was like third or so, like on the podium in the end, like with my Nazgul piece, and this was like a last week of voting, and they were doing like all the crazy, you know, promotion campaign for all the artists that were on the top, which was pretty good because I didn't know that there is like some. I thought that these organizations were scam, you know, like just to be honest, like I never really believed in something like, oh, I never believe in those contests that it sounds too good, you know, to be true. So in the end, I think they dumped this guy from the first piece, from the first place, and eventually my Nazgul piece landed first in fantasy genre, and I won. So I was like what the fuck, you know, what the hell happened, you know? Like I knew it's like it's still like a relatively a new and small contest, but man, when I got the email from them and they told me like, hey man, you won, we want to give you the prize, and we also want to cover your flight, and we want to invite you to States for Comic-Con. I was like, what? Like really? And it's like it was like eye opener because like no, that's not gonna be true, you know. And I was that guy that never traveled before with plane, so I was basically beating with my own mind if I should go or not because I was so scared of flying. So the whole month before I actually decided to jump on a plane, I was dreaming about it. I'm falling in a plane. It's crazy, you know, like this sort of like a mindset of like a small kid that wants something and has to go abroad over ocean, and it's like, man, it sounds like too good to be true. But I knew that there was that guy from Poland who visited States lately. You know, it was Wojtek Fus, and he basically, I think he flew to States for like for some academy of drawing. I guess he was attending some atelier and on some workshops. So I just called him. I think I just messaged him first on Facebook, like, hey man, like I actually am about to fly to States, but I don't know anything about such trips. And do you want to meet with me, or like can you share with me some information? And yeah, I found out that after a while, after exchanging some messages with him, that he lives very close to me, and we met. You know, we met like in McDonald's, just for a coffee. We talked about like exchange some views, and the next day he invited me over to his place, and we decided to, let's, you know, we have a good chemistry going, so let's try to set up some art group. You know, we are noobs, we are just starting out, we have something going on, and we are very enthusiastic about it, and let's take it up, you know. So we did like a couple hours brainstorm. We came up with the idea of like, yeah, let's start a level up group because we have to level up, you know. We both had to level up, so we started a level up group. And man, every day it was like hundreds or like 500, 600 people joining to the group, and the group was growing and growing, like exceeding our fan base, sort of, so to speak, like amount of people like radically, rapidly fast, and we decided to do like a stream, and we did like a first stream before I flew to States. And that's how it started. I just visited States. I wasn't at Comic-Con. I showed my work, and I realized how small I am. I realized like how newbie I am comparing to artists that were like on the convention. I met all those like Magic the Gathering legends, and it's like, yeah, but those guys, man, it's like they are basically living with what they do. Like it's not that they were living out of that. It was their lifestyle, doing work like conventions, meeting fans, like signing posters, like doing stuff live. It was like, for me, the guy from Poland, it's like it's crazy, such a different world. And I stayed there for 2 more weeks. Organizers like let me stay and at their place, and I visited like a Gnomon workshop, like Gnomon school. Yeah, I just did a little bit of like a walk around the city. Of course, I had like no connection back then, so I could only go to the places that I just called myself if I can visit you guys, because I'm a big fan, and I'm just starting out. So I was very enthusiastic at the time. I was very curious about the world, and I have to be honest, I was pretty brave as well, because like I just went there alone, and I just like, yeah, it might be like a big shot. Of course, it didn't give me any any of that big exposure back then, but it showed me the world from a little bit different perspective. So I've seen things that might be very vague if you listen to someone who is talking about it. So I was super inspired, especially when I entered a Gnomon workshop, the school, their studios, seeing the students what they do. If I compared, even in my mind, if I compared art schools in Poland to their school, like, yeah, this is something that I really want to do. Like, it was super oriented with concept design, character design. It was something that they had all the posters that they were like contributing to regarding like a big franchises. And yeah, this is the world that I really want to enter, because I was I was keeping I was telling to myself like, yeah, I'm still doing this low key illustrations, like for small clients. Of course, I had to already appreciate, because I knew that there were people that might just dream about something like that. They could basically make any living out of their work. But I felt like, yeah, I have to dream big. I didn't know if I make it, but I kept on dreaming big. I knew that I'm still young, so I have energy, I have all the power, and it all depends on me. So I came back to Poland. Yeah.
No, I was wondering, so is this contest, do you think that kind of kickstarted your career? Is that?
Not yet. I think it let me show, it let me see the things that I basically didn't have any idea about their existence. Like when I visited the convention, the Comic-Con, and not only seeing artists, but also all the cosplayers, like how it's different in terms of culture. It's basically living culture, and we didn't have that in Poland at all. Maybe recently in last few years, and because of Witcher and all those like successful careers going from Poland, maybe it's a little bit better now. But if you are in the country that basically even the internet is shit, and you go there and it's like go to the States and see like there is something like art culture when people are living and are embracing their favorite like franchises and topics, and they are basically manufacturing their own character suits. And what it's basically showing me a little bit different how the things are, how developed they are, and the market is much bigger than I thought. So maybe there is a chance for someone like me to provide provide work. I didn't even think about providing concepts or whatnot. I was like, I want to do art for that world, So I came back to Poland, and we kept on doing Level Up, and we invited people who were, of course, our inspiration. And I guess we got of course both of you guys at some point. And I remember like talking to people like you that basically opened the doors for us, like in terms of like you didn't give us the work, right? But you opened the world for us to see like, hey guys, like this is what we do, this is how we do it, you know, here is all the production tricks. We were talking and we were part of the audience, listening to the people who are our guests and basically opening the new doors every week, because everyone has their own story. Everyone had their own struggles and everyone had their own experience. We had also the guys like I think Ian Dumitrescu, who was like almost 35 or 40, and he decided like, I'm gonna do a concert, and he switched over totally from what he was doing before and started doing a very successful career. So it showed us like it's never too late. We are still so young, and we have a lot of we have all the power in our hands, basically, you know. And if all goes well, if you are healthy, if you take care of yourself, and if you are passionate about, if you are heart driven, you can make it. So one, you know, time after time, like when we did like the sessions along 2014, I started doing more concept art friendly portfolio, and there was actually a time that our station emerged after CG Hub was closed down, I guess, at the time. And yeah, and I was one of the first guys that was just basically joining our station. And I remember posting the stuff because I was still having a lot of time and still was very energized. So I did new work every week or two new works every week. So I posted regularly, and that's how people started noticing me, you know. So I basically, yeah, I couldn't believe it at the beginning, but it was like I never really submitted my work to any studio because I didn't even know how to do that, you know. Like I knew, of course, you know that they have like some inbox or like whatever, but of course submissions through such companies, it probably goes into thousands a week, and I don't really think that they even have a chance to look at all the submissions. So I was doing work, and along that way, and posting that to our station. And along that way, the clients came in. So I had like the first calls from Sony. I think it was Guerrilla Games at the time, ILM, Framestore, and I had a lot of interviews back then. And the funny thing is that I couldn't really speak English very fluent back then. Even when we were doing Level Up, it was a total disaster when I was like trying to talk. And it was also one of the things that I was improving upon. So I remember like Level Up was for me not only art road or art journey, but also like a language barrier journey, you know, like breaking all the boundaries. So I remember when I had interviews, like I think it was with Framestore, and they had like 6 or 7 people in the room, and they put the phone in the center on the table, and they called me, and I remember, man, they were talking to me. It's like I was like, yeah, sure. Like I didn't. After my talk, I was like, what did I agree on? You know, like what the hell? I didn't even know like what I was like you know, approving on. So it was fun. It's like every time I message my clients, hey guys, can you do like a little bit of like a roundup of what we were talking about, or like a little bit of summary, because you know I'm not really my English is not my first language, so so of course, like all the obstacles in the beginning, it's funny because when I remind myself about it, like it's a lot of fun story, but at the time it was a lot of stress, you know, because everything was so new for me. But I was enthusiastic. I kept on doing. I didn't give up very easily. So I had a lot of conversations, a lot of interviews, and I think the first one that decided to go ahead and give me a job was Sony Guerrilla Games, and the studio in Cambridge. It's not existent anymore. So yeah, they flew me over to UK, and it happened like within 3-4 weeks that, you know, I was so hyped. Like I was talking to some of my friends, like how should I charge? You know, like what should be my rate? Because I was charging, man, I was charging like nothing. You know, I was charging like $100 or $200 per illustration back in the beginning when I was doing some Fantasy Flight games, cards or whatnot. And once in a while, if I had like a bigger cover for comic, I was like so hyped. But I didn't even know how to charge in concept art at all, because I did like few pieces and they had an eye on me, and they said like, yeah, it caught our attention. And it was just my personal test, I did like some max or like some environments, like, yeah, we're gonna hire you, So I had to talk to some of my friends. I talked to also some people from Level Up that we invited, because the good thing that we always rather try to stay in touch with people that we invited. Of course, not with everyone you have such chemistry, but if you see that there is like a guy that's really helpful and has a lot of passion and loves to share, it's really good to keep in touch with such people, because from the perspective and from the time to time, I see that I'm rather that the same person right now. I like to, if some of my students reach out to me, I like to be honest with them, like give them a feedback or like give them some tips on on the industry. So I teamed up with some of the people like that to talk about like my what should I expect from the client and what's not. So I was living there for a year, and I think this was one of the first breakthrough in my career, because I saw basically the industry from the kitchen, from behind the scenes. So I see all the production pipeline, all the hard work that people had to do, and I only understood that concept art is just a small piece of Lego in that whole a jigsaw. So it's basically like you just start on in the beginning as someone who is inspiring team, give the general look or general ideas. And of course, I had to learn all those things. I had to learn like 3D. I had to learn like how to use photos, because I was rather that guy who was, yeah, I'm gonna paint everything. I might just use some texture here and there, but I'm gonna paint everything. And my art director came over like once in a while. I was like, Jesus, Darek, why you are painting that? Like, just use that photo and just bash it together. Like, so all those things that are like industry tricks and everything that I had to learn with new software. It was a struggle, I'm not gonna lie. I thought that all my likes and on Facebook and because we got famous at some point, with Wojtek through Level Up, because we were just like small guys, like newbies in the industry, but people knew us, because of Level Up. So I thought that all the likes and everything is just like it's equivalent of your skill. None of that, Like I realized that I know nothing. It's like a Jon Snow. I didn't know shit about concept art, So that first job was very tough. I had a lot of like breakdown moments, but I didn't give up. I called my parents. They told me like, yeah, but be professional. Fulfill the contract. Get through that. You'll see. Today it's hard for you. Tomorrow it will be easier. And I had that in my mind, and I kept on going. And at the same time, I think 2 or 3 months after I was in, our director from Ubisoft reached out to me, and they wanted me to join to Singapore studio to work on Assassin's Creed. I think Jan, you also worked on this Assassin's Creed. Yeah. I'm not sure. It was Syndicate.
Oh no, not that one. I was the one before, or even two before that.
Oh, okay. So
well actually, hold on. Before you get to that, I'm wondering. You said the first job was really tough, right?
Yeah.
What part of it, like what was really hard about it for you? Was it like sort of you just weren't used to doing concepts like that for a studio or working at a studio? What was hard?
I think it's a bit of everything, like even making iterations, because I was coming from that like more illustrative approach. It's like I love doing like a vast scenes, like marketing art, but I always had that spark in myself that I really want to do something that's like more my original ideas. But I didn't really know about all the iterations until I get there. And I had a hard time of doing, like, for instance, we were designing mechs, something that, like, yeah, me and Max, like, I did like a two mech, like concepts for myself before going to Sony, and that was everything that I did regarding mechs, at the time. But man, I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of research. We had already some technological briefs about like what sort of technology we're gonna use, like what sort of like mechanical parts can we get inspired. And I remember I did like for instance leg designs. So leg design for the main robot's legs in a lot of iterations. But at the beginning I did like one iteration. Man, I love it. It's fine. Let's ship it to my, and I shipped it to my art director who had like a desk right behind me. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, man. But we need like at least like 10 more iterations. Like, the fuck, man. It's like, really? It's like I was so lost in the beginning because I didn't know that you had to really keep on designing until you hit a certain point. Sometimes of course with time you understand that the client needs to get like they need to have like a clear vision or clear direction. And since they were also responding with the designs from the studio to the main Sony at Japan, I guess. I think it was a little bit tough for everyone involved because the project was very ambitious at the time, and I think sometimes they were doing like something for a couple months and they had to redo it completely. So this was like it goes through a lot of iterations and you had to get used to that. So I had to get used to that as well when I was sketching out or when I was designing, that I have to do not one iteration, not 5, sometimes 25, and maybe one of them will be good. Or maybe you have to do a mixture of 21, 23, and the second one, and build it together. So these were the things that I had to learn along the way. I don't think that might be a big struggle. It might be a little bit of struggle to change my mind, because what I do, I cannot get attached to that. I was so attached in the beginning. I was attached to just one sketch, to one composition, to one design. But after a while, you have to understand, like, no, people, clients are paying you for ideas. They pay you for iterations. They pay you for inspiring team and solving the problems that the artists, 3D artists, that they have to stumble upon along the way. So sometimes 3D artists came over to my desk and was like, hey, Darek, can you explain why did you put this brushstroke here and what's that? Can you explain it a little bit more? So of course, drawing in perspective, in 3D space, and along the way, I had to also learn 3D software. They were using Maya at the studio. Of course, there were the times that there was no Blender or not much resources on such awesome softwares like today we have. So I learned Maya after a while. I was staying at the studio after hours and was trying to learn it. I had also some of my friends were showing me in the studio. They were showing me some like approaches, because the first and foremost, I guess, what's important is to understand what is the polygonal modeling and how to approach it. Because I, of course, wanted to approach 3D the same manner as I was approaching painting. It's totally different, it changes your mind, it changes your approach. Like you basically have to adjust your thinking to that. So, man, it was crashing all the time. Maya was terrible for me to use. Like I was doing like low poly models, and it was constantly crashing if I wanted to animate something. And I remember one of my colleagues, I think Jeffrey Arnold from the studio, he was using 3ds Max, and he was using it very, very smoothly. I remember like he was sitting right in front of me, but I saw his back and his screen. So I remember like he was bashing things together, like designing things very fast. Like, yeah, like I asked him to stay with me for a couple of lessons. He showed me some ways around. I started watching YouTube, walkthroughs on how to approach modeling 3ds Max. I downloaded 30-day version, and I gave myself a deadline. I'm gonna learn this software in 30 days. To the degree that I can use it for concept pieces. So I learned it. then I approached my client, I think it was producer, and I asked them if they can buy me a license of 3ds Max because I cannot stand Maya. I learned 3ds Max along the way. I didn't tell anyone. I only Geoffrey knew about it, so I was learning that along the way. And it's like, yeah, that was like one of the struggles, because for artists that love speed paintings, like, rough sketches, like rough brush strokes, and now you have to do the technical 3Ds, like, man, it's a nightmare, like, they're gonna fire me, man. It's like, so I had to learn all that. Of course, other things were the language barrier at the beginning. Like, I think it was the biggest lesson to live in UK because their accent is very, very specific. It's much harder than States. And so I remember, like, I got lost in the middle of when we had like a dinners, and they were talking some jokes, and I was like so hyped because I understood for the first 10 seconds, and after a while, like, no, I give up, like, so I kept on eating, instead of like listening, because I was like, no, it's too hard for me. So of course, after a while, you get used to that, and this was another barrier. The other thing was like, I actually got a proposal from Ubisoft. So I was working at the office at Sony from 9 to 5, from 9 to 6, and then going back to my apartment. Yeah, and kept on doing Assassin's Creed stuff because I knew at the time when those guys reach out to me, this is my breakthrough. This is going to be my breakthrough, I knew that the guys at Sony were developing very interesting project, but along the way, you get a sense of if it's gonna be a hit or not, So I had a feeling that I need to divide my energy. So I did my best till the end of the contract at Sony, but I also kept on doing stuff after hours to provide work for Assassin's Creed because I knew, man, this is established IP. I'm not established artist, so this is my chance, So I kept on doing that, and yeah, and when I finished my contract at Sony, I came back to Poland. I was continuing the work on Assassin's Creed, and the moment I was able to announce it, or I was able to write it into my CV, and kept on posting my personal work that I guess like got only better with time, this was like a door opener for me. So I think from that time on, and ever since, it was my breakthrough. So I had some clients that were waiting for, like, I really have to mention some guys that were really honest and very, very fair to me, because I had those talks when I was interviewed by Sony before going to UK. I had those interviews also with Ubisoft, and there was like some mismatch that I can talk about later as well. And I had the calls with Framestore, and those guys were like, "Okay, Darek, we will reach out to you when you are done with Sony." And at the beginning, it's like, yeah, of course they can tell it to anyone, like, yeah. Like, but to be honest, the moment that I came back from UK, I finished the contract at Sony, and there were those guys, like a producer from Framestore, reach out to me like a week or 2 weeks after I was back in Poland. It's like, hey, Darek, we didn't forget about you. Like, we have some new work, and they were actually proposing me going to UK again. But I was like, man, no, I was living here almost a year. Like, I just need to stay in Poland for a bit, So they proposed me like some work on, I think it was Robin Hood and King Arthur, the movies. So this was my first like a movie experience for concept art. And yeah, of course, I told them I'm super excited. I'm very thankful that you guys didn't forget about me. So they kept me on the list. But yeah, I can only do it for freelance. And I finished my contract with Ubisoft on Assassin's Creed. I started new work at Framestore, and I knew that, yeah, my personality, my approach, my journey, I prefer it to be remote. So I set up the company in Poland, and yeah, it from there it went like a roller coaster. The clients came in. I got visible on the market, and fortunately and luckily it goes strong till this day. So
But it's
Yeah, I
still
mean,
not
it's
enough for
great.
you, right? It's still not enough. So you had to found a school, right? I want to hear about that, right? For most
yeah.
people, it would have been
Yeah.
enough to be a successful concept artist. But I think if we heard anything from you, I think the theme of like self-reliance and self-direction is a big one for you. So tell us a little bit more about what made you start a school.
Oh, thank you. That's a very, very good question.
Yeah, he had nothing to do.
So
He was
bored.
bored.
I actually had and I still have, a very good friend of mine, Mikhail Kus. I'm pretty sure you guys know him. He's amazing artist, and he was actually the first concept artist that I reached out to when right even before I spoke to Wojtek before Level Up, because he was doing the concepts for a game that I was doing marketing art. So I was, of course, illustrator, and I was using his designs to build like a big battle scenes. It was a very small and in the end very bad, shitty game on Steam, but that was the project that sort of like thanks to we met, and I reached out to my art director at the time. It's like, who is this guy who's like doing all those amazing mechs, like, oh yeah, he's like one of our like Polish guys. Like he was Polish but Dutch, because he was born in Holland. um, so like we have this Polish guy here over the studio, and it's like he's doing all those mechs, and like, can you? And I asked them if they can contact me with him, So they gave me like his Skype, and we started chatting. Of course, after a while, I realized that he can talk Polish, and we started like chatting. We became like art friends, I guess, as you are, guys. We started like talking on Skype ever since, basically, like almost every day. And all my breakthroughs, all his breakthroughs, we shared together like a bros, like it, however cliche it sounds, it was a true friendship, because we were very supportive to each other, and he was, of course, much more experienced than me when I started out, because he was actually doing concept art and I was still like trying to. So we always had this idea, because we kept on in contact for many years. We flew to each other, like we visited ourselves, and even our parents know each other and what's not. So we had this idea of like, after a while, we did a lot of workshops, we did a lot of talks, a lot of events, public events, and I was doing that Level Up, but he was doing a lot of like very good classes at CGMA. So we always thought like, yeah, man, maybe we should do something together. And like we had the idea of studio, or like something together, like a podcast maybe as well, after we sort of like got burned out with Level Up. But yeah, we said like, let's do something together, like for 100%, So we kept on dreaming, we kept on like having in mind. And Michal, I think, finished his work at Hitman in 2018, and it's like, man, this is the time. He finished his contract, and he was more of like the guy who was traveling from studio to studio at the time, and I was already freelancing most of the time. So I just invited him to Poland. Man, why don't you move here and let's start something else? I had some contacts here. I had some network to basically kick off like an educational program. And yeah, we had this idea of like starting the school, and we had a lot of brainstorm about how to call it. Of course, Level Up was such an amazing name, but I didn't want to use it again. So we had to team up, like come up with something that's very striking and evocative as well. So focal point, of course, is like one of the main term in art, in photography, and everything that comes to visual art. and yeah, it started on. Like I had some contact with like a film and movie school in Gdynia, in one of the cities that's very close to where I live. And I spoke to the director there. Amazing place, like beautiful modern building. A lot of like movie stars are coming there as well for like conventions. And we had like a small space over there. It's like I think that the place itself had such a prestige, so we wanted to do at least one term over there. So I had a contact with the director and like just try to persuade him like, can we do something like that? Like you can see that it's gonna be beneficial also for the school, because there's like a lot of like people from abroad that can come over to the school and like see your place, and it's a good marketing for both of us. And we did actually the first term during the summer 2018 at the school. And yeah, very fast we realized, of course, the place is too small for us, because we only had like a one small room for the classes, and we run like 6 classes, right? So we had to schedule it in a way that we can run either simultaneously or with the schedule that the school actually is letting us, because we were so dependent on that. Of course, after a while, we finished the first term. It was very successful. We thought we had like people from quite a few countries. We had people from Brazil, we had people from States, from Japan, from Germany, from France, Italy, and those like smaller countries like Lithuania, Slovakia, only during the first term. So we thought like, yeah, man, it reaches international people very easily. So we have to find like a bigger place. And we, of course, didn't want to be a trouble for a school institution that the film school was. So we rather wanted to find something that's like rather not related to what we do. So like rather like a bigger space, like a nice modern room, fully equipped with multimedia, like projector, big screener, whatnot. But we didn't want to be dependent that much as we were at the film school. So we found like a new place, and since then we have it located in the center of Gdańsk, so the main city on the north of Poland. And yeah, we kept on doing the classes from there. Sometimes we have to rent other class as well. We have a lot of ideas how to improve the school, how to basically make it better, make it bigger. But of course, COVID in 2000, I think it was the beginning of 2020 in Poland, it of course slowed down everything until now, when we announced like another term that starts on 6th of August, and this will be the hybrid term. So for those who are not who are vaccinated or who are not afraid of like restrictions, they can come to Poland. During the summer, it's usually much easier to travel. For those who cannot access or prefer to stay online, we are going to stream from the class in real time as well. So, so we launched like a new term in August, and I think it's gonna be the biggest to date because the number of submissions is the biggest so far. Of course, during the pandemic, we did like we managed to squeeze in like 2 terms. It was very hard, because man, we had to keep a number of people low in the class, so we had to keep like a lot of space between people. We had to have all the sanitizers, like we wanted to be as professional as we can. So we worked along with due to the restrictions that were given by the government, but it was very tough, So business-wise, it was a huge drawback for us for last one and a half year. But we started that not because we wanted to have only the business, but we just wanted to do that. And maybe now I'm gonna answer your question. Why did we start a school? Is because we are both self-taught, and there was a lackluster of knowledge in Poland, not only in Poland, I think in Europe, and maybe you, Jan, can agree on that there is not that much concept art professional education in Europe. that's basically focused only on concept art. So we didn't feel it. We didn't feel it. It's our mission, but we wanted to fill the gap, you know. So it's like we're gonna be the first ones that basically do solely concept art courses, and for people from everywhere, from Europe, from States, from Poland, from Germany, from all over the place. But it's in the Poland, so pretty much center of Europe. I think very good location. Now Poland is very well connected with all the countries from Europe, also from over the ocean. So yeah, this was one of our goal in mind. Like we didn't have that knowledge, we didn't get that knowledge because we ourselves thought we had to get all the knowledge on our own. YouTube, when I was starting out, was not that well developed in terms of art. Like we didn't have that much free resources. We only had like amazing videos like Gnomon workshop, Gnomon DVDs, but for the
DVDs.
guys, yeah, for the guys like us in Poland, we were like, yeah, it was very expensive, you know. So you always want to find like some ways to get those videos, you know, so to speak. So we wanted to fill the gap and basically create the educational platform that we were missing when we were starting out. That's yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly is happening now. I mean it's difficult to have a school, you know. I think there's so many things, especially with the pandemic. I think that's been happening, and now that things are moving in the right direction, that's really great. Jan, did you have any other
No, I
questions?
mean, one of the big questions I had was why there was a school when you went through basically teaching yourself and you came out like really well the other end, right? So there's always that thing, and I was wondering about like I mean, you kind of answered that question of like, is it better to be self-taught or to go to a school, right? I mean, for you yourself, though, did you ever feel at some point in your career that it would have been better if you went to a school to get that education? I mean, you mentioned those things, those parts in your life really early on when you said you wanted to be self-reliant. You didn't want to ask your parents for the money, which is a very nice thing to do for a son, right? But I mean, I'm wondering if there at some point there was that feeling that like you felt like, oh, I have to go to school. Like I think a lot of Americans or I don't know, other people would say like, oh, mom, dad, can you pay for that really expensive private art school? Like, what's your like? Were there ever times like that?
So that's a very good question, and I have to answer that, and the answer will be a little bit shocking because I'm self-taught, but I actually graduated from art school, and that's like not many people know about it because I was at high school. I was at math and physics, so I was sort of like, I love doing what I do, but I didn't know that I'm gonna break through to like a proper industry, something that I mentioned in the beginning. So I was keep on like thinking about like maybe I should also try to use like a in like IT knowledge, or like being like going to physics and maths. Thanks God I didn't do that because I'm in no way I'm not such genius to be so fluent with math and physics. I was good enough to pass on the school, but not of like a special kid, that can make a living out of like very technical numbers and like statistics or whatnot. So my mother is she is her profession. She's professional architect, but she is not active in the industry. She graduated also from and has like a degree as a master's degree in architect as an architect, and she of course she was one of those people, one of those person that yeah, you gotta go to our school. You gotta go to our school because it's like you never know what happens. Maybe you can only end up teaching. It's like maybe a little bit like a bad thinking. Like why should I think about what if? when I was a small guy, like a young guy, like 18, 20 years old, like why should I think, or why should I have in mind, like what if? And actually, I submitted to a fine art school in Gdańsk, and I got there. And the funny thing is that why I'm always keep telling that I'm a self-taught, because as a student, I think I was, to say it very kindly, I wasn't very good student, because I wasn't very active student. I got there. For the first 2 years, I was hyped because I met new people. I met like a lot of friends. We had a lot of parties, crazy parties. All the crazies, like all the crazy growing up adult sort of like stuff you experience in the academy. So I remember like I was so hyped, and the thing that the possibility to coming over to the class every morning, and you could draw live the model for free, was awesome, because back then the school wasn't, you didn't have to pay in Poland for such school. So it was awesome for first 2 years. But I was, as I told you, I was already working on like some cardboards. I was right before level up and everything, so I just mostly focused on digital art, and they didn't like it there. They treated me as someone who's like, no, it's a fake artist. I was a fake artist for them. So of course sometimes I had to prove it, like no, I can actually draw, because I was doing that for all my life. And when I had to, I was drawing. Let's say for first 2 years I was semi-active, just to call it very, very kindly. The third year, I got a job at Sony. So for a whole year, I was abroad. And of course, I had a lot of problems because of that, because the teachers were like reaching out to me, like, what the hell, man, where are you? Like we're gonna cross you from the list, we're gonna dump you as a student. So it was tough, because my mother's on the one hand, my mother was like, no, you have to finish that. On the other hand, I had the gigs that were like keeping me hyped, and I knew this is my future, So I was like, and at the same time, I promised to my mother and promised to my girlfriend at the time that I'm gonna finish that. No matter how, I'm gonna finish that. So when I came back to Poland, I finished my contract like a month before the semester was over at the third year. So I think it was sixth semester was over, and I had to catch up on everything, like art of history classes, all the theoretical classes. I had to do number of drawings that was important, because I didn't have any space when I was living in UK to do such things like a big drawing. So yeah, I did that. I was so bored. I'm not gonna lie. I don't feel like I was taught there. Like I might come as an asshole, but I don't really feel like I was taught by them. So I'm always honest that I'm self-taught, guys. Like everything I learned is from either YouTube or my art friends from the industry. So I cannot give someone credit that didn't help much. So besides those 2 years that I was very active, on the last 2 years, so fourth and fifth year, because it was 5 years studies, I had a guy who was like a promoter of my diploma, my master degree, and he was the best guy ever, because he gave me the free hand on everything. I shouldn't probably say that, but I was passing my tests, or I was passing the exams with either the work I was doing for myself on the tablet, so digitally, or the work that I was doing for my clients, and show it to them, like, yeah, I did this, and okay, you can pass, So that was my studying. So I cannot call myself very active student. And during the fifth year, actually, when I was freelancing very hard, like 4 or 5 projects at a time, I was actually dumped from the school twice, So I had to pay. I had to pay back to be back on the list. And the funny thing is, the last time before my exam, my final exam, they sort of fired me again, and there was like a small circle of artists from other department. I think they were doing like they were doing that handmade sort of art stuff, not painting, not drawing. It was more like a sculpting sort of thing. And they invited me to be a guest at the school to give them a talk in front of the whole field class. It was such a bizarre thing because the first thing when I entered the class was like, I of course I was very warmly welcomed. It's like, hey guys, thank you for invitation, but I gonna be honest with you, I'm actually got fired from the school. I was actually dumped from the school like last week. And it was like so funny because they were from totally different department that they didn't know about it, but they heard about me already, and they invited me to do a talk because some of them were very hyped for concept art, for illustration in the entertainment industry. So it was a funny thing because I of course had to pay for like getting back to school. Like I promised to my mother, of course, so I had to do that. You know, I didn't want to fight with anyone. I just, okay, mother, I'm gonna finish that. So with my promoter, we actually managed to get me a public presentation as my final exam at that film school that we set up the focal point for the first term. So that's how I knew those guys from the first place, and that's how I get the connection to make a first term at focal point over there. And that's basically the story in a nutshell. So yeah, I wasn't very active. That's why I call myself self-taught. And getting back to your question, Jan, can you repeat or elaborate on the question again, please?
Now it's of course a bit different now that I heard this story, but I mean, I was just wondering if you at any point you felt like there was a strong urge for you, like, I mean, you got all this knowledge from YouTube, and at some point you must have known about a school like, I don't know, Art Center or something like that, or CalArts or whatever, yeah. Right? I mean, was there ever was it never even an option, maybe for financial reasons, or you maybe thought, hey, I can do this by myself kind of stuff? Or I don't know, was there ever a feeling like I need to go there, like no matter what, to that school?
I actually had that feeling right after I visited States for the first time, and I visited Gnomon workshop, and I was like, man, I would love to study there. You know, if I had to study, I would 100% go there. But I think at the time, I remember when I was checking their prices, of course, it was way over my budget or my parents' budget. So I decided, like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go I'm gonna get through like a longer road, you know, because that's funny thing, because if I compare myself, and if people keep telling me that, oh, you're young, you start very early. Yeah, because I started when I was like 15 or 16, and my road to reach certain level to get to industry was like, I don't know, like 7 years or so, or 8 years. And these days, I know guys who are like starting digital art like 2 years ago, and now they work for like the biggest clients. So it shows how progressive the knowledge, how everything basically progressed. So it's very fast moving forward. Like it's very easy to pick up on the knowledge today. And when I entered this like 2013, 2014 period of time, I decided like, okay, I'm gonna do it by myself. I'm gonna give it a go, you know? And of course I got those offers, and I treated my education process was basically dictated by what my clients wanted me to do. So every new task for me at the time was fresh, and it was a challenge. No matter if I had to do matte painting, if I had to design like a robotic stuff, if I had to do like a environment with architecture, it was all challenge for me at the time, and I treated that as a lesson, step by step. So I basically treated my client work as my main school, as my main motivation and my main drive for pursuing a better self artist or self thought, however you want to call it.
I got a question actually, that piggybacks off of Jan's stuff, and I think it's just a very simple question. It's like, and I think you may have just touched on it just now, but I want to know what okay, so you consider yourself self-taught, although I think probably the schools probably gave you some sort of basic level of understanding, of uh, some background in figure drawing or whatever, uh, what is setting your school different than anybody else? Like, I mean, at this point, I'm sure that there are more sort of entertainment arts kind of school.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you Focal Point special? Is it the fact that you're like, okay, no, we don't want you guys to do anything that you don't need to do,
Mm-hmm.
and to focus, on like the things that are needed, or is
Mm-hmm.
it that you're bringing in industry professionals? I mean, what makes Focal Point unique?
That's a very good question. I think one of the main thing, and of course, as Jan mentioned, we at the beginning, like I guess me and Nicole, when we were starting out, we were of course hearing about all those amazing schools. Like we know a lot of artists, famous artists, come from like Art Center or like Gnomon Workshop or Gnomon School, and we asked ourselves a question like, how are we gonna structure the school to keep us excited, to keep us entertained, and to share the best possible knowledge with our students. So this was one of the crucial questions before we even started, because the last thing I would like to do was to set up a school just because of the business, just because I want to make I want to make money out of that. If it's not exciting for me, if it's not teaching people, if it's not producing professionals, I would be the first to jump off the ship. So even though I was the main guy who came up with idea initially, I would be the first to leave that if it wasn't exciting for me, or if it wasn't producing a decent amount of people who have a chance to enter the industry.
Are
So
you guys tracking that?
of course, like, and we have a lot of people who are like, actually yesterday, one of the guys that I even hired for some of the projects for my company, he messaged me, oh Darek, I just got a job at this big studio. It's like, thank you very much for everything. It's like, that's awesome to hear, because it shows what we do is not just empty words. We can be, we can be the best marketing guys, and like, oh, we do amazing stuff, we are such a unique school. And getting back to your question, one of the things I guess and I find very unique at Focal Point is that we not only try, but we do our best. We strive to create an environment as you are in the studio. So we got like, for instance, if you are in an advanced class, you got a task or the brief that we basically could get on our own from the client, right? And we are directing that sort of, so we are sitting with the group of people. They are all doing their individual work, but we sit down with them every week. We do a feedback. We give them direction. We feed them with inspiration during the week. So it's not that we only, get students during the weekend and we like, yeah, just do yourself, do your stuff. We also are active with them in a Facebook group that we have dedicated for each term or semester. And we basically feed them with inspiration. We talk to them. We treat them as our pupils, as our, I would say, maybe as someone who we would like to work with, maybe at some point, because of course, that's gonna be honest number, out of 100 students, I guess maybe 3 of them, maybe 5 of them sometimes maybe even 10 will make it to the top. You know, maybe 25 or 30% of them will get into the industry. But we have to take into consideration the factor that not everyone is made for this industry. No matter how talented or how well in the art craft you are, maybe it will be too tough for you to sustain. Maybe it will be too tough for you in terms of like a business side. Maybe you will not be able to live with the pain of the back or neck or eyes or hand. You know, these are the struggles that we don't usually talk about because people only see you are gathering like a, I don't know, like a 10,000 likes and you are famous, like, oh, and you got a good money, you got amazing projects, but people don't really see all the struggle behind it. And I'm honest with my students all the time. I would love, you know, let's say I have a group of 10 people and I'm talking to them all individual. I would love to be all of you guys in the class one day working with me on one project, or one day be part of the industry I'm in, or I can be proud of you in like 5 years that you made it. But to be honest, it's very low probability. It's not very sorry, how to say that? The likeness is very low that it might happen that 100% of the students will be succeeding, will be successful in the field. And it's honest, but it's actually true. You know, when I listen to, I guess, to the best art talks in my life, I always get that feeling that there were probably like a 400 or 500 people in the audience. I was, of course, in the audience, and I listened to that guy. I don't remember who was that, but hearing him sharing the knowledge and seeing all those people, and he shared the experience of his life and what he had to go through, man, by even looking at the people's faces, you know that not even half of them are such dedicated to be where he was, you know, on the stage. So I guess it's very honest, but it's with every profession. You know, we have a very famous football player, Lewandowski. He is the best in the world, but he is just one only unit, one entity, maybe across the 50 years of Polish history of football, right? I'm not telling that we are those people, but it shows that to be good at something, it's not only be good at art. It has to be good. You have to be good at like getting through the struggles. You have to be good on the business side. And I really loved, for instance, one of your talks, and I think it should have like much more views. You know, like when you guys did that talk on business side of things, on negotiating the rates and whatnot. It's very informative, but not a lot of people are talking about it. And I was always like wondering, like, why is such a, you know, taboo in our industry? And that's not good, because in the end of the day, if you're not educating people on that, you see that the industry rates are going lower because people are not, you know, educated enough. And there is always like a newcomers that charge, for instance, too low, and clients use that for their advantage, right? This is one of the examples. So I would say the unique thing about Focal Point is that we have this sort of like a environment, like professional environment, and we do a lot of in-depth talk with them. So when I do a live demo, I encourage them all the time, guys, if you have like any industry question, or if you have any struggle you want to share with us, or you want to share with me, please do it. And that's how you see that people are starting opening themselves, you know. And that's the beauty of physical aspect of the school, because we had a hard time passing on the idea like we go hybrid, you know. And maybe at the beginning it was a little bit about our ego, because we always wanted to stay physical, so people come over to Poland. But of course, because of pandemic, we were sort of like forced to do a hybrid term. And in the end, of course, I believe it was a good solution. But the physical aspect of the school is something that's very missed when you transmit something or you stream something to people on the other side of the screen. You know, I bet our talk or our conversation will be even more fruitful if we all met in one place. You know, we could drink coffee together, we could drink a beer, and we could go so much in depth, much more than we yeah. So
yeah, I mean,
it's
let's try to make that happen
When
in the
Definitely.
future,
when
right?
we're Joe Rogan level, then we can fly you in anywhere you want.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, we're pretty much out of time, I think.
Yeah,
It's been
it's a good
great,
point to cut it off, I
actually.
think. Yeah.
Jan, you wanna
Yeah,
outro
no, I
it?
think it's a great point to wrap things up. I think there was some really valuable things that Darek mentioned there in the end. So I hope you guys got a lot of good knowledge out of this, and I hope you're all hyped now
So much in there.
I hope you're all hyped now to go to Focal Point School. We'll put all the links and everything, all the information into the description of the video from Darek, from the school. If you have any questions, of course, you should reach out to Darek or Michael if you want to know more about Focal Point and what it takes to study there online or in person now. Hopefully very soon again. And if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more guests like Darek, please like, comment, and subscribe. And a big thank you again to Darek for taking time out of his busy school and freelance schedule to share all the good knowledge here with you guys. Again, thanks so much, Darek. And I see you guys in the next week. Bye.